morning, and thank you for tuning in to the Andrew Tate Show, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. We've got a great show for you guys today. We're going to be covering the Big Ten and the SEC's possible demands with the CFP, the latest on FSU and the ACC trial, and make sure you guys stick around for segment 3 and 4. We're going to do something a little bit different today, where we have a special segment on dating horror stories. But before we start, I just wanted to ask that you like and follow the show. We get a number of questions from the viewers that come in during the show, so to ensure that your question gets read on the air, I ask that you use the tips and donation link with your question. The tips and donation link is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. This puts your question at the top of the list so that I can see it, and it also just really helps the show. Also, we have a guest today, Tommy from the GSMC College Football Podcast. So, you get one more person other than just your regular me and Tate. So, how are you guys doing today?
Is it me and Tate, or is it Tate and I?
Tate and I, me and Tate, whatever.
What was that, Thomas?
I've walked into a little bit of an argument here, but
Oh, can you hear him, Faith? He kind of broke up a little bit.
Yeah, I got him. Yeah.
Okay, I was just making sure. Okay, my first question. First off, welcome to the show. We're excited to have you. I just want to make sure we're calling you by the proper name. Are we calling you Tommy? Are we calling you Thomas? Am I calling you by your government name or your name on the streets?
Let's roll with Tommy. That's what I do on my show. So I think Tommy's probably best. Okay.
Yeah, we're all about that street cred, Faith.
Just as long as he's not calling you Becky, Yeah,
you do not want to be called Becky. And you don't want to be Miss Peachtree either.
No, definitely not.
Don't want to be Miss Peachtree.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, let's just dive right into it. So, big topics these past couple of weeks. It really just seems like nasty, divorce between mom and dad on both things, honestly.
It's a soap opera. It's
really
matter of fact, it's the best soap opera in sports right now.
Yeah.
Only thing it's missing is a baby's mama. And then
So, the Big Ten and the SEC could demand several things as these meetings keep going on. Wednesday is shaping up to be one of the most significant days in history of the college football playoff. The 11 members of the CFP Management Committee will be tasked with hashing out the structure of how college football is going to look for most of the next decade. With no resolution is expected on any single issue, this will be the meeting where everybody puts their cards on the table. It also stands as the first meeting involving every conference since the Big Ten and SEC basically staked their claim to the future of the sport by forming an advisory group earlier this month. Tate and I talked about this a little bit yesterday, but I mean, it's a complex situation that you could honestly talk about for days and days and days.
Okay, I want to make sure I'm understanding things. When you were talking about meeting Wednesday, you're talking about this past meeting that already happened, right? You're going to okay. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I was just clarifying. I was like, what?
Yes,
wait a minute, they're meeting again? All right. So Thomas, this thing has just gotten crazy. I understand, politics and everyone, jockeying for a position to get what's best for them. It's unfortunate in many cases because I know that some of the proposals on the table is the crazy one is a 12-team playoff where the Big Ten gets 4 schools, the SEC gets 4 schools, the ACC gets 1 school, and the Big 12 gets 1 school, and then the rest of college football fights for 2 spots, including Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. It's kind of disappointing because this whole playoff thing, it could have been the thing that everyone wanted, where everyone could have been included. I have been saying this for years. I wanted it to be a 16-team playoff where all the conference champions, the SEC, the Big Ten, the SEC, the Big 12, the MAC, Conference USA, all of them, every conference got one at-large bid. There's 10 conferences, and then there were 6 at-large bids. Everyone would be included. All the blue bloods would be included. All the top conferences would be included. But we didn't get that. We have a, just flat out, political war where everyone's just kind of gone to their corners and they're saying, my stick is bigger than your stick. And the SEC and Big Ten are saying, like, listen, we're going to work together. We got the 2 biggest sticks of them all. So we want it all. And I don't think when you're really looking at this, they're looking out for what's best for the fans. They're looking out for how can they make the most money and how can their conference be represented best instead of what's best for the fan. I thought my approach would have been the best one, but nobody gives a care about what I think. But you know what I mean? Every conference having their conference champion in, and then the 6 at-large bids, I thought that would have been the best model. What do you think about what's been going on?
First of all, the idea of the 10 auto bids is very interesting. I hadn't heard of that before. To be honest, when you look at what the SEC and the Big Ten are doing, obviously it's not the best thing for the sport. I don't think anyone can necessarily argue differently, because one of the great things about college football that's been there for as long as I can remember is the regionality, the different styles that happen in different parts of the country, and the being able to play the teams in your state, the teams that, you have neighbors that are fans of those teams. And obviously a lot of that has been lost with the conference realignment, and then the playoff obviously expanding has created kind of this, almost like this arms race in college football where you no longer have necessarily the time to worry about the sport as a whole, because there are people up top that are prioritizing money so much and putting so much towards the top conferences, whether it's TV deals or, just the SEC and the Big Ten kind of run the sport, and they have for quite some time, really. I mean, when you look at the overall quality of play in those 2 conferences, it's obviously, a little bit above the rest of the group, and it has been for quite some time. I think since the playoffs started, if it was a 12-team playoff from the start of the playoff, they would get about 7.6 playoff bids per year between those 2 conferences. So there is this argument to be made from their point of view that they deserve more, right? If they're playing the best football, they want to be well represented in the playoff at the end of the year. And I think a lot of this obviously started when Texas and Oklahoma decided to go to the SEC, because it then created earnest on the Big Ten to keep up, right? The SEC had always been looked at as kind of the big dog, and then adding, Texas, who's a huge brand, and then Oklahoma, who's had all this success throughout their history, it put more earnest on the Big Ten to add teams that have that same thing. And then when the playoff comes into all of this, you have these 2 super conferences that have been pushed by each other to create better and bigger product. And then this is what happens, I guess.
You said it started with Oklahoma and Texas. I say it started way before that. I think it started when the Big Ten took Nebraska.
Yeah.
I think that's when it actually started, right then and there. That started the arms race right there.
Yeah.
And once that happened, then it set the dominoes in place for what was going to happen next with, Texas A&M and Missouri. And then it's been kind of like a big arms race between these 2 conferences ever since then. And, I understand why they're doing this, because I think the largest domino has yet to fall. And that is, if Florida State gets their way and they can break that granite right, it's going to be a flood.
Mhm.
And these schools, those ACC schools, are going to flood into 3 conferences. The top teams are going to be divided up between the Big Ten and the SEC, and the Pittsburghs and the Syracuses of the world. Maybe the NC States are going to end up in the Big 12, and it's going to be by ACC.
Mhm.
I mean, that's my we're all speculating here.
Yeah,
And then you hear another proposal that I saw this morning that was brought to the table was 4 teams for the SEC, 4 teams for the Big Ten, 2 teams for the Big 12. But I never heard anything about what they were going to do with the ACC. If the Big 12 gets 2 teams and there's 8 teams between the Big Ten and SEC, what happens to the big mega pack 2, pack the Mountain West, the American, and all those guys? They're done. They're out of this.
Yeah, that's the big
ahead.
thing. I mean, we talked about it a little bit earlier. I think this sport slowly is becoming more about the powerhouses of the sport. And for a long time, at least from my point of view, what made this sport specific and special in its own way was the MAC teams, the Conference USA teams, the Sun Belt teams, all these teams that you don't necessarily see on your TV every single Saturday, but they play very specific styles. They are very different, and they have a very intense fan base in a lot of ways
Absolutely.
because they're a smaller school, because people identify with that so much. And I think over the last, and even a decade, like we talked about, or more than a decade since Nebraska joined the Big Ten, there's been more of an earnest on the Power Five, and then now the Power Four, and I have a feeling soon the Power Three, and then so on and so on. But I think one thing to keep in mind, especially with this playoff stuff, is they had planned to go into this season with a 6+6 format with a 12-team playoff. They've already changed course on that. So
Wrapped it. Yep.
the question is, I guess, if Florida State does win out, which I tend to believe they will. Now, I'm not a law expert or anything like that, but I tend to believe Florida State will find a way out of that conference. Then I'm sure they'll come back to the table and find a new deal. So I think it's a very interesting thing, because we're talking about all the new developments in the playoff and all the changes that are going on throughout the landscape. And all of this could be, scrapped in 2 months if the ACC falls apart, or it could be scrapped in a year if Florida State finds their way out in less than a year. So the playoff committee, I think, in some ways kind of showed their hand to the SEC and the Big Ten, and to kind of everyone, to say, we're amenable to what the landscape looks like, and what the people that run the sport, the commissioners, and all of those people think is the kind of landscape of this sport. So the Big Ten and the SEC, from my position, are obviously the power brokers in the sport, and obviously hold a lot of the cards in this situation, but it's only going to get bigger, right? The cards that they hold are only going to get bigger if they add a team like Florida State, or they add a team like Clemson or North Carolina or Virginia. So there is this worry that all of this stuff that is slowly pushing towards a new era in college football, which doesn't look like college football too much to me, is only going to get exacerbated more when Florida State finds their way out of the ACC and they eventually, dissolve. Because if you ask any Pac-12 fan, it can happen very quickly, where your conference was right there and then it's gone the next day. So I think the ACC it has to be all hands on deck in that office right now. It has to be everyone focused on keeping Florida State on board, because if they, let them leave, the entire conference.
And I was going to say, I'm going to have you hold that thought, because that transitions right into what we're going to be talking about next. I'm going to toss it back to Faith. You can give your last words on what your thoughts are before we, go to our next fun topic.
I agree with what Tommy said, saying like the Big Ten and the SEC are basically like kind of the powerhouses of college football, and a lot of the time they do end up in the playoffs. But for me, like, it doesn't seem really fair, because what if some of these other like smaller tier conferences have like up and coming like really good teams, and they're not even going to have a chance to really go into that college playoff if it's set to the way like the Big Ten and the SEC want it. So,
Yeah, it makes it incredibly hard for everyone. Loves the dark horse.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the Boise States back in the days, Utah, having Cincinnati in the playoffs, things like that. When you're starting to look at a playoff when there's 8 teams going to be, from one conference, it stacks the deck against them incredibly hard.
And even if they were to get in, they would probably have to play a home game in Athens or in Clemson, South Carolina, or Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and then they're really up against it. So it's all a mess.
Yes. All right.
Yes, it is. All right, guys. Well, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be talking about the latest on FSU and the ACC.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Alrighty, guys, welcome back. Earlier, we were discussing the Big Ten and the SEC with the college football playoff, and now we're going to be talking about the latest on FSU and the ACC. But before we do that, I just wanted to remind you guys to like and follow the show. We get a number of questions from viewers that come in during the show, so to ensure that your question gets read on the air, I ask that you use the tips and donation link with your question. That link is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. This puts your question at the top of the list so that I can see it, and it also just really helps the show.
Hey, Thomas, you notice how she spits that out all smooth, not choppy or anything. That would never be me.
Listen, when you say it, over 20 times, you kind of get the hang of it. Oh, alrighty, guys. This is the biggest divorce court scenario I have ever seen. Honestly. So Florida State and the ACC are going back and forth in court as the school tries to find a way out of the conference. The next small step in the ongoing college football realignment process has come as the ACC has filed a motion to dismiss or stay Florida State's lawsuit against the conference, according to multiple reports. That decision comes about a week after Florida State files its motion to dismiss a lawsuit brought ahead by the ACC in which the conference accuses the school of breaching its contract with the league. People have taken the ACC's admission that Florida State could buy back its television rights from the conference as some kind of revelation. This is not a new possibility. Texas and Oklahoma set a precedent by leaving the Big 12's grant of rights early. Florida State's own filing admits it could potentially write a $570 million check to the conference in order to fully regain its independence.
Okay. I'm going to take this first, Thomas.
Go for it.
First off, the way under that $500 million, that doesn't include the exit fee. I think exit fee would be a 130 plus the 570 some change, mere bag of shells. You're talking $700 million to get out of this contract. And if I am the ACC, that is the only way I am letting Florida State out of this contract. I definitely want to hear what you have to say on this, Thomas. Here's the reason why that is the only exit path you should, if you're at ACC, you can give them. If you give them any other path other than the fact that they're going to have to pay $750 million to get out, if the Florida State walks out of there scot-free, or $100 million, $200 million, then you can kiss the ACC goodbye. Because I'm going to tell you this right now: Miami, here's a check. Clemson, here's a check. Virginia, here's a check. Because they'll make so much more. North Carolina, there'll be so much more money when you're looking at the Big Ten, who's going to be making about $100 million per school per year. The SEC, who's going to be making $70 to $80 million a year, and you're sitting there with about $36 million a year. You write that check and then just take it out over the life of the contract. Plus the fact that these guys are going to, the SEC and the Big Ten gets another bite at the apple. So they're going to run the table, take all that money, then go up for a renewal where they're going to be the ones who's going to get the big monster contract before the ACC ever gets another bite at the apple, kind of what the Big 12 did to the Pac-12. And you're sitting there maybe without a partner to dance with. Mm-hmm. In order to save the conference, if you're looking out to save the conference but try to get an exit ramp, you have to make it a minimum of $500 million for Florida State. You want Florida State gone. You just want to get your pound of flesh before they go, because if not, you open up the floodgates. Go ahead.
Absolutely. I think when you talk about college football, and especially in this conference realignment world, if there's enough people with enough money that want to do something at a school, they're going to make it happen, right? So in whether it's Texas or Oklahoma, they wanted so badly to get out of the Big 12 that at a certain point, the Big 12 had to, meet them halfway and kick them to the curb kind of, and just move on with their conference. And I think the worry for the ACC is when you were the Big 12 2 years ago or even a year ago, you had other conferences to go to where you didn't necessarily have to backfill with tons of smaller teams. So if you're the ACC and say Florida State can get it down to 100 million or 200 million or whatever the number is, you don't have the option necessarily to fill with teams like Colorado, Arizona State, or Utah. You would be forced to fill with teams like Troy or teams like USF. So ACC right now, as far as I can tell, is kind of in survival mode. Whether that's with Florida State or without them, I think is entirely up to the ACC. But I think if you let Florida State leave for, half or $750 million, which would just be insane for the conference, even if a couple of teams follow, not everyone's going to be able to foot that bill, obviously. There are a couple. Exactly.
That's what I was saying. That's why I was saying you have to make that, because there's going to be a bunch of schools that don't have deep pockets to be able to leave, and you keep them locked in. And then at that point, you're able to bring in maybe Washington State, Oregon State, the team with Cal and Stanford. Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
I guess the question is, I wonder if in the ACC offices, they're trying to figure out what the number is, I guess, because I think at a certain point, they're probably going to find some type of middle ground, but you don't want to give up too much ground, because the second you do that, you're opening the door for all these other teams. So I wonder if there's some calculations going on to how many teams can afford, X amount of dollars, whether that's $500 million or whatever, to keep them in the conference. Because if you lose Florida State, it's obviously not ideal, right? They're probably the biggest brand in the conference. They obviously have the most success right now, coming off a year where a lot of people thought they should have been in the playoff, and that's kind of where all of this started. But I think for Florida State, if they're in the ACC going forward, I'd love it. I think the conference would love it. But at the end of the day, if they want out, they're going to find a way out, right? But you need to limit the damage or stop the bleeding, as it were. So if you're the ACC, it's all about getting as much as you can, perturbing as many schools as you can to stay in your conference, to stay viable, because as the Pac-12 showed us, it can happen overnight where you have this great conference that should be blooming into what was their best year a year ago for the Pac-12, and it all happened with the backdrop of none of these teams are going to be here a year from now, and you don't want the same thing to happen to the ACC, obviously.
Here's something. You stated an assumption that Florida State is going to go to the SEC, and I don't believe that. I see Florida State make an attempt at the Big Ten. When you look at the research dollars that goes into the Big Ten prints money. And being a part of the Big Ten, where they're I forget what it's called now. When you're certain, you have to be a certain level in the academic realm. Florida State fits that mold. Then you look at the fact that, to buy your rights back, you're talking about $36 million a year. Makes it a lot easier if you get a full vote, a full chunk of the pie with the Big Ten. You're looking at about $100 million a year. You lose 36 of that, but you're keeping about 60.
Yeah,
makes that writing that check a little smoother.
And as opposed to in the SEC, making around, I think 60 million is their payout for next year.
But over the next couple of years, it's close. I think, if I remember correctly, it's closer to 70 to 80 over the next few years. I think
definitely in the Big Ten, it definitely makes footing that bill a lot easier on the pocketbooks, no doubt about that. So I guess the question is, which conference really wants them, right? The Big Ten is up to 18 teams after adding 4. The SEC is still at 16. And I guess the question is, are they going to try to meet each other halfway? Or are they going to try to have the same number of schools? Or is the Big Ten going to get greedy and try to gobble up as many schools as they possibly can? Because as we talked about earlier, this is kind of just an arms race at this point. So I wonder how much of a say Florida State will have which one of those conferences they go to, or they'll just take what's put in front of them because they at least think it's better than what they have now.
Here's the thing that I'm curious on. If this breaks, one of the things, there is no doubt the SEC as a whole would like Florida State. There's only one problem, Florida. Florida does not want Florida State in there. And matter of fact, the way I understand it, Florida State does not want Miami in there either. They like being the only Florida team. And the Big Ten, I personally would love to see the Big Ten go this route. Bring in Florida State, and then bring in Duke, North Carolina. I think that would be a great fit for the Big Ten, where Clemson, the only place Clemson can go is the SEC. They fit. Clemson, Georgia Tech, into the SEC, I think is a perfect fit. Adding Atlanta to the SEC is just a tailor fit. That's why I picked Georgia Tech.
And I think one of the things missing from the SEC, one of the very few things missing from the SEC, is that kind of central location to kind of build around, right? I mean, the Big Ten has Chicago kind of smack dab in the middle of their territory, which helps them a ton. And I think having Atlanta, as opposed to Nashville, which is obviously a huge city, but Atlanta is obviously massive media market, tons of different things going on there, including Turner Sports. So I think there is this need for the SEC to have a central location. And also, it's a school you used to have in Georgia Tech, and you get a rivalry in your conference with Georgia and Georgia Tech. So I think that one makes a ton of sense. I think the question or the comment you made about Florida not wanting Florida State in, definitely I wouldn't want them either if I was a Gator fan. I don't know about that, but I will say I don't think Texas A&M wanted Texas or Missouri wanted Oklahoma at all. Exactly. So the question is, how much say do they have in that conversation? If all other 15 teams are on board, they might just fall in line and keep it moving.
Okay, let's shift this to Faith. Faith is the only person on this show. She actually attends the University of Georgia.
I used to.
Oh, okay. So we got 2 alumni.
Yeah.
Okay, University of Georgia.
Hang up on you like this, but
Go ahead. What are you gonna say? Go ahead, Faith. Go ahead, Faith.
I was just gonna say, yeah, Tommy is also a UGA fan, so he's not
Sorry.
goes to the games.
no worries.
I didn't make no disrespect over here.
I'm a UGA in Texas, so I have a lot of enemies in this college football world. There's no doubt about that.
See, I'm a University of Akron grad, so I'm as clean as it get. I'm a Mid-American Conference. We don't even have a vote.
They don't have dogma.
What he's not telling you is he's a Michigan fan, though. So
huge Michigan fan and Miami.
I think it really just all comes down to money. I mean, that's what all of this is about anyway, is money. So it's going to depend on which conference is going to pay Florida State the most money and which conference is going to make the most money out of Florida State. So it's just money. That's all that this is about. I mean,
of course,
so
here's the true
who's going to make the
story.
most money. That's what's going to determine what happens with FSU,
This, like we were saying, it started with, you said, the SEC going after Oklahoma, Texas. Then I reminded you about Ohio State going after Nebraska. I mean, not Ohio State, the Big Ten going after Nebraska. It all comes down to the true puppet master is the television networks. They're the one that's controlling all of this. Secretly, they're the ones that are causing all this problems. And so it comes down to, for a person who's been in the industry for a long time, where can they get more revenue? Where can they get the more television dollars, more eyes? And so that's kind of where the true issue comes from.
And it's one of the bigger problems with the sport overall, right? The people making the decisions that affect fans like me and you and all of us are people we can't see and people we don't know the names of and people we probably will never know the names of. So I think there is this there's been this big push obviously around college football to have a commissioner that can kind of handle all this craziness between the TV deals and realignment and the playoff and all of this stuff, and kind of at least be a front-facing person that kind of gives us some type of idea of what's going on behind the curtain. Because right now there is this kind of like with these TV deals kind of running it and these TV companies running the game. I think there is this kind of frustration from college football fans that we have no one to kind of talk to, no one to voice our concerns to, because where would they possibly go at this point, I guess?
Sorry about throwing you a curveball. Faith and I are used to just sending each other messages and things as we're going. And then I send a message and you kind of looked over there and kind of pause a little bit. You're not quite used to us as of yet. We run an interesting ship around here.
No, I like it.
Last question for you before we wrap things up, not trying to have takes Faith's job either, is with everything going on, think about the last segment, think about this segment, and then think about everything I'm hearing. Notre Dame is still like, we don't need a conference. I don't understand it. Am I missing something?
No, I don't think so, at least. It doesn't make much sense to me. I always thought that at some point Notre Dame would pull the trigger and join the Big Ten and be in that conference, because they've been playing a number of different sports in that conference for some time. So I think it's an interesting thing, because when all of this stuff started to come out and the SEC and the Big Ten started to demand more from the playoff and the ACC started to look like it was on teetering, there was this thought in me that was like, okay, maybe we finally have Notre Dame on board to be, part of a conference and be not this independent team anymore. And if they want to hold pat, they're more than welcome to, I guess. But I'm not sure it's in the best interest for the team or the program. But more power to them if they want to be unique, I guess.
Even in some of these proposals, they're saying four automatic bids for the Big Ten, 4 automatic bids for the SEC, 2 bids for the Big 12, maybe 1 for the ACC. Okay, that leaves 1 spot open for everyone else, and Notre Dame's like, we're not worried.
I guess
we're Notre Dame.
They're going to be that team every single year, but I wouldn't be so confident with everything changing the way it is and so many different teams popping up. I think the Big 12 is going to be a really, really viable conference that has a ton of really good teams across it. And then if you're Notre Dame, you're going to have to fight for a spot with all of those teams combined with maybe some group of 5 teams that go undefeated or anything like that. So Notre Dame is slowly making the path to the playoff and the path to a national championship a little bit thinner as the days go on, it seems.
I feel like Notre Dame is that guy. His wife works at a company, and the wife was like, "Oh, that's my house husband. No, I mean my work husband. No big deal." And it's like, "Oh, go out to dinner. No big deal. We're not worried." And next thing he looks around, and wifey is gone. And he's by himself. He's sitting in the kitchen crying because it's gone. That's the way I feel like Notre Dame is. Notre Dame is like watching all this stuff, and they're like, "Oh, no big deal. We don't need a conference." And I feel like Notre Dame's going to look around one day and be like, "Oh, crap, we needed a conference."
I tend to believe the same thing. I think if they were to get into the Big Ten right now and you had those 4 auto bids, they could very easily be one of those teams that get those 4 auto bids. And even if they're not, you beat 1 or 2 of those teams during the regular season. Even if you go, 9-3 or whatever the record would be, you could find your way in. But if you're out of every conference, you essentially have to go 11-1 or 12-0 to give yourself even a shot. And I just think at some point they'll make the decision to go to the Big Ten, but right now they seem to be as stubborn as Notre Dame usually is about this type of thing.
Yeah, it's crazy because, I'm serious. I truly do look like they're going to look around and find out like, whoa, we used to be Notre Dame. Now we're going to the wayside like Army, who used to be a major powerhouse in Princeton. Nobody thinks about Princeton and Army as powerhouses anymore. It's going to be Army, Princeton, and, oh, remember Notre Dame? Oh, yeah, I remember them back when great-grandpa used to root for them.
I think they think their brand is going to hold enough weight, but at the end of the day, if they don't have the dollar figure next to that brand, it's going to be a little bit tougher.
The minute they turn around one of these years, they're going to turn around and CBS or NBC or whomever is going to decide, you know what? We want to get in on this Big Ten SEC.
The second NBC plug on Notre Dame, they're in trouble.
Cancel Christmas.
Yeah.
Cancel Christmas. Alrighty. Well, Tommy, we want to thank you so much for being on our show. Your show's right after ours, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, so you guys make sure you tune in to Tommy's show after our show. But thank you so much for joining us. We had a great time with you. But we're going to take a quick break, guys. And when we come back, we're going to be talking about our dating horror stories.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, guys.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Alrighty, guys, welcome back. Earlier we were talking earlier we were talking about the latest news on FSU and the ACC, and now we're going to be talking about some dating horror stories. Tate brought this idea to me a couple days ago where he was like, I think every Friday we should have like dating horror stories, and that should be like our thing on Friday. So I haven't come up for a name for it yet. I'm still racking the brain of like what this segment could
losing
be
the faith instead of keeping the faith, losing the faith. So I'm very curious on some of the stories. Also, I'm looking forward to hearing some of the other people's comments and things as well. So it's going to be interesting. Yeah. All right.
Okay, so the first one is, my daughter went on a date with the guy she met on Bumble. She said the date started off well until dessert when he started talking about his ex. She said he went from ranting and raving about what a horrible person she was to full-on crying about how much he missed her. When my daughter asked how long they'd been together, he said 3 weeks. Then he immediately dried his tears and asked if they could go back to his place for sympathy.
No. First, my man. All right. I gotta give him props for at least shooting the shot. Wait.
No.
Let me explain what I'm saying first. You know, I guess in his thoughts was a closed mouth doesn't get fed, I guess. But my man, if you are, it is just a bad decision. Don't bring up your ex.
No. On a first date? Absolutely.
On a first date. And I'm someone who is friends with like a ton of exes. Mm-hmm. We talked about that before. I'm friends with a lot of exes, but I have a rule. I never go back. I never date a person twice. Mm-hmm. I don't go back. There is no makeup, break up to make up. Nope, that's not me. And you know, turn the lights out, the party is over. There's a reason why we split up.
Yeah.
So, but dude, if you're on that date and you go from complaining about, you know, your ex, first off, that's dating 101. No.
Yeah.
Crying about your ex and how you miss her, Faith, that's when drop an elbow on him, peace out, deuces, I'm gone.
Okay.
You know, that's my take. Go ahead.
My thing is, how would you even think it's okay to ask to go back to your place for sympathy when...
I just give him credit for at least shooting a shot.
No, because if you were talking about your ex the entire time and then started crying, like, what makes you think somebody wants to go home with you?
Because you'll be surprised at how many people will. You would be shocked at how many people would. That's the sad thing.
That's psychopath behavior. It is. That's psychopath behavior.
Okay, this is gonna make me look bad. We're not going about the shooting a shot thing, but that whole bringing up an ex is a big no-no, and this is gonna totally make me look bad. But this was years and years ago. I was dating this newscaster in another part of the country. And she had just broken up with an NFL athlete. And so we were on a first date, and all she did was talk about this NFL athlete. I let it slide the first time. Again, we went on another date, and all she did was talk about this NFL athlete. And I had a really nice car, and she was like, well, your car is nice, but it's not so-and-so had this. And then we went on a third date. Now, she didn't have strike one, strike two. She brought him up strike three, and I told her maybe, and she was talking about the ex. I'm like, maybe you need to call him to pick you up from this date, and I left her there.
Savage.
I hit her with the deuces and bounced straight out.
Savage.
True story. I swear that's a true
Tate's
story.
Like, peace out. I'm out. Figure out your own way home.
Yeah, and we were like, we had driven a little ways, but yeah, I'm like, you need to call him to pick you up because we're out. Yes. I didn't pay for the food we got either. I was like, love peace hair grease. I'm out.
I have had guys talk about their exes on first dates, and when that happens, I don't call them back. I will ghost them.
And see, it's weird because I'm friends with almost every girl I've ever dated, and I know that. So we talked about that, and even right to this day, I mean, my wife knows or friends with some of my exes, but I have a stern rule. I don't care what the reason why we split up. It could be my fault. It could be my mistake. It could be her mistake. It doesn't matter. There's no reason to ever go back. No. We tried it for whatever reason. The cards weren't in our favor. Never ever go up.
I agree. I've never backtracked ever.
No, you get one shot at the title, and that's it. Yeah. But if I'm sitting there and like I keep wanting to say her name, but she's someone that's kind of well known in a certain part of the country. In the U.S. And so I won't bring her up the name, but yeah, no. If you're you go on one date, you let it slide. Yeah, Becky. Becky had to walk home. And you bring up the first time, and I'm not a guy to bite my tongue, so I was like, listen. I understand that you went out with so-and-so, but you with me now. I don't give a rat's butt who you went out with before. I'm not a backup singer. You know what I mean?
You should have been like, great, you dated him. You want a cookie? Like, what do you want me to say?
Yeah, and so when you got 3 warnings, it was like you walking your butt home. You're not getting a ride home. You're not getting a doggy bag at the table. I'm out. So yes.
Goodness.
So let's hear some of the comments. You got any comments with this one?
No, I found these on an article from BuzzFeed. So these people submitted these.
Okay, that's.
Next week I'll find comments that go along with these.
All right, that's no problem. I have a million. I shouldn't be sharing date stories about myself. That me leaving people at restaurants, and you're like savage.
I've done that. I've left somebody at a restaurant before.
Oh yeah, no. You can't be making me a backup singer. No. I'm not. I don't want to be somebody else's prince, and I'm the revolution. No. All right, go ahead. Let me hit that.
You don't want somebody to be Beyonce and you be Destiny's Child.
Yes. No. Because as much as those guys are trying to make their career. Nobody cares about them. They want to know when Beyonce's tour is. Nope.
I like Kelly Rowland. Love her.
Sure, she's a nice person. Hi. You're not Beyonce.
Alrighty. Next one is, I matched with this guy on Tinder and he seemed super sweet. According to his bio, he was an accountant in downtown New York. We talked for a week and he asked if I wanted to go out for dinner that Saturday. I said, sure, why not? We're going to a nice Italian place, but he was wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt when he picked me up. I shrugged it off even though it was a little strange. We get there and as I'm heading for the front door, he tells me to come here. I was confused and I followed him anyway. He tells me that dinner was served while pointing to a dumpster. To make matters worse, he took out an old takeout container of pasta and started eating it. I was so disgusted and shocked, but I had no ride, so I said that I had to use the bathroom. I told the restaurant about the guy and asked if they could call me an Uber. Worst date of my life.
Oh, hell no. Oh, sorry. Wait. Oh, this one I got the vapors on this one. He brought you to a restaurant dumpster? Not the restaurant.
To the dumpster.
You listen, baby, we eating good tonight. I got us reservation at Ruth Chris. Let's go. Oh,
at Sizzlin's.
we must got a private table. We're going around back.
Yeah.
Oh. And you gonna take me to the dumpster? Oh, hell no. What do you? Okay, Faith. You got your date of your dreams, and the fact that he showed up in sweatpants should have told you something. You know, the only thing would have been worse about this, and I'm gonna ask my question in a second, would have been if you'd had the first couple of dates at his place and y'all were eating really good, like, oh man, he's like, eat as much as you want, no problem. And then next thing you find out where it came from. But this dude is taking you to the dumpster. Ooh, okay, Faith. The table is yours. I want to hear what you have to say. The dinner table is yours.
I think
he takes you on a date.
I think that reflects how he feels about you. Like, I understand it's a first date, but you make first impressions with people, and first impressions, a lot of the time are going to be the lasting impression of who you think that person is. And so I think even if he didn't have money or whatever, he could have taken her somewhere. I don't need to go to a fancy restaurant on a first date. Could
have taken you to Sizzler.
It's nice. I enjoy it if you take me to a nice restaurant on our first date, but it's not a requirement for me. I just want to get to know that person and see if we would make a good fit. And the fact that he didn't even attempt to try to make a nice date, even though he didn't have a lot of money, and just was yeah,
maybe that was the nice date. Maybe that was the nice date.
Well, he needs to reevaluate his life if he thinks taking a girl to a dumpster of a nice restaurant is a good first date.
This is one of those Dave Chappelle moments where it's keeping it real goes wrong. Okay. Listen, my man, I'm talking to you. Dumpster David. Okay. Homie, don't be taking girls to a dumpster, man. That is just guaranteed. You are not closing any business by taking anyone
no
to
deals
a
are
dumpster.
being closed. No
Nothing.
deals.
No second dates. You're not even getting a kiss on the cheek. Good night.
No.
Even if you don't have money for an Uber and you live 4 towns over, it's you know what? I'm walking home. Because that is serial killer mentality. First date.
Absolutely.
Let's go around to the KFC dumpster. No.
Absolutely.
Well, maybe he was looking for his soulmate. And he was looking for Oscar. He was Oscar the Grouch, and he was looking for his soulmate that was the other lady that lived in the trash can. And maybe they was listen, this is who I am at my soul. If you got to accept me for who I am, which is dumpster diving Dave. So he wanted you to know who the real person was right from the gate.
No. Listen, I'm sure they have a dating app for people who like dumpster diving. There's a dating app
it's not.
for
There's
everything
no.
now.
Listen, there's
well,
no.
Maybe he should make his own dating app then of people who like to go dumpster diving.
Oh my God! When you go pull up on, you even went and got your hair and nails, not hair and nails done. You got them did. You got your hair and nails did. You show up at this date, he takes you over to the dumpster, and you're looking. Could you imagine the look on her face where okay, we're going in the back, so maybe, some places got back entrances. Wow, man.
My jaw would be to the floor. I literally would be What?
Wow.
Excuse me?
That's a doozy there. Do you think he's shocked when she was like, "No, I'm not going home with you"? Do you think? All right, wait.
Maybe. Honestly, maybe. Because if he thinks that it's okay to take a girl to a dumpster on a first date, I'm sure he would be shocked if she left him and went home. I'm sure that would be his mentality.
Okay, Faith. Do you think he's done it before and it's turned out to be great dates? Do you think that was the first time he tried to pull this, or did he pull this before and it worked out? So that's his go-to move now. The scissor
I really
dumpster in
hope
the back.
that this is the first time he's ever done it. You know, he was just, he had a hypothesis and he was just testing it out,
Maybe he was just blowing girls' minds so much that he was so open and honest that he was like, "Go ahead, listen, I brought you a cold container as well. There's some wings and ribs over there by that squirrel over there." The rats were only just eating on the outside of the crust. Sorry. I'm so sorry.
Gosh, I'm going to have such a hard time enjoying my morning bagel after this show.
Oh my God. What is this? Listen.
What is wrong with people?
Drugs are bad, everyone. America.
Remember that thing you signed at the DARE program when you were a kid?
Yes. Dumpsters I don't know. No, drugs is bad.
Drugs are bad.
This is one of those things.
Don't do them.
If you think that taking a girl on a first date, second date, 55th date to a dumpster in the back is that's your mentality, you done did a little too much.
Oh, if my boyfriend decided, he was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna take you out to a really nice restaurant, get dressed up, whatever," and he drives me to a really nice restaurant, and then he walks toward the back, and he's like, "This is where we're gonna have our dinner," I would look at him and be like, "Are you absolutely insane? Have you just gone cuckoo bananas?"
But see, okay, my first thing would be, oh man, my girl, she's sick. We got to get her to the hospital. She didn't had, something mental that went down. We got to get her to the padded cell, get her some treatment. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm thinking. Something ain't right. If you're going to go to the dumpster on the first date, are you noticing that both of these dates are those like Bumble and what's the other one?
Tinder. Yeah, all of these are from dating apps. These are like dating app horror stories. So, and I've had my fair share of spending time on a dating app, and let me tell you, you meet more worse people than you do nice people on these dating apps.
Ooh, I know. I have buddies of mine that swear by it. I got an old neighbor of mine. He got divorced and he went on a dating app. He's like, "Man, if I would have known it was like this." He's like, I got divorced a long time ago. He's like on every one of them. He's on Bumble, Tinder, Plenty of Fish, Dumpster Diver Dave's app, Farmers Only. he's like on all of them, and he loves them. So
I don't know how people find good people on dating apps, because I have not found a lot of good people on dating apps. So
one day I will tell you a dating app story at some point. But yeah, I'm not a dating app kind of guy. I don't have anything against it. I'm more like, oh, she seems cute, or, you strike up a conversation somewhere. I'm more of the direct approach.
Well, it's kind of hard with people in my generation because, we're very into technology now. And so
I get that.
That's like the best way to meet people is through apps and social media and stuff. So, I had just gotten my heart broken.
You cannot complain because you got a table for one behind Subway.
Yeah.
That $5 footlong my butt. This footlong is free.
Which they're not $5 anymore, if you didn't know that. They charge,
Listen,
it's $12. It's $1 an inch.
Okay. That sounds funny. Jesus.
That's not what I meant. I was talking about the sandwich.
Oh my God, I apologize.
Move on.
Okay. Sorry about that with Faith. I lost a little composure for a second.
Move on.
Okay. I don't see the Subway commercials anymore. We don't get those in Portugal, so I didn't know that they don't have those $5 footlongs any longer.
No, they don't do them anymore.
But man, someone's gonna go to the dumpster. That is hilarious. So,
Yeah.
All right.
All right, guys. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we got some more dating horror stories for you. Alrighty, guys, welcome back. We're just gonna dive right back into our dating horror stories. Oh.
Woo. Woo-sa. Woo-sa.
Okay. So our next one, this one's a bit of a long one, but it's kind of mind-blowing. So when I was 25, I met this guy on Tinder. For the first couple of weeks of dating, we only spent time at my house or going out, never his. When I questioned why we couldn't go to his place, he said he'd been living with a friend because his new place was still being renovated. I thought it was kind of suspect, but he was super hot, communicative, and kind, and I was young, so I overlooked it. The more we got to know each other, the more he started staying over at my place, and within 2 months, he was basically living with me. One night while he was at work, an email notification popped up on his laptop. Upon further inspection, I realized he had a profile on a sugar baby website, which he had been sending messages from as recently as the day before. I was shocked. I broke up with him and kicked him out, but it ended badly, and I never got my key back. 2 months later, he reached out while I was out of town visiting family, apologized for everything, and asked for a second chance. We discussed getting together to talk when I returned at the end of the week. I ended up deciding to come back a day early. In the day, I headed back. Everything seemed fine until I told him about a change of plans, and he immediately stopped responding. It seemed weird, and I was upset but shrugged it off, figuring I'd hear back by the next day. When I finally made it to my place, I walked in to find my trash overflowing, a sink full of dishes. My bed had clearly been slept in, and there were clothes that were not mine everywhere. I was obviously freaked out and went to my neighbors to see if they had noticed anyone coming or going. They told me they talked to Tony as he was letting himself into my place almost a week prior. He told them he was watching my dog for me while I was out of town, which was impossible because my dog had come with me. Turns out, he'd seen I was out of town on social media and had been squatting in my apartment the entire week I'd been gone. He faked wanting to get back together only to find out when I'd be home. The next day, I changed the locks, threw his stuff in the hallway, and texted him that I knew what he had done and to come pick it up. He never came to get it, and even had the audacity to be PO'd at me for removing his things from my apartment. We never spoke again.
Okay. My mind's been going all over the place. First one was, can a brother get that sugar baby website? I didn't know there was a sugar baby website. Brother may have to, just in case things go south.
Oh my gosh. You are a married man.
Oh, I'm sorry. This has been the best. This has been the best 2 episodes ever. two segments ever. Okay. Can I give a pre-conversation before we dive into this conversation?
Yes.
Okay. Just a couple of days ago, living in Portugal, you meet people from around the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I just met somebody that this is kind of a situation where this couple, they don't have a home. They just bounce around. It's a website for people who want to pet sit. You go to the website.
I've heard about this.
And you go to their house, and you stay at their house. And right now, these people are living in a mansion for the next 3 months as they take care of this dog. And they're it's an American couple, and they're actually in our town. They're staying in a mansion. They don't have a house. That's what they do. They just go around Europe, pet setting, and they have from one gig to the next gig, from Portugal to Paris to Spain to London. I mean, they're bouncing all over Europe. They've been doing it for years, just pet setting. Everything is paid for and taken care of. They don't have any bills, anything. They're just bouncing around Europe, just living their best life. And the guy was telling me oh, no. We only stay in places through the top 1%. We look at only the top 1%ers' houses, and we stay at those. And they're all the time. That's what they've been doing it for years. And I'm like, what? This was just 2 days ago.
I know, I need to get into that gig.
What a gig.
Yeah.
Years. Not
Mm-hmm.
We just started doing this. They've been doing this for years. And literally in our town, which the area is pretty affluent, they got 90 days in a mansion. They got the run of the house, the refrigerator's all full, everything, internet. They have everything they want. They pay nothing. They're just living in a mansion for free, just chilling like a villain. And it's wow.
Yeah.
All right, now let's go back to this dude here. There are some creepy dudes out there.
Yes, there are.
You know what? I shouldn't say that because that's very sexist. There's some creepy people out there.
Yes, there are.
Listen, man, when you start dating someone, you got to be careful about who you date out there, because next thing you know, they got a key to your place. They're getting food out of the dumpster and everywhere else. Oh no, you gotta be careful with these guys.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's one of those things about the dating world that's so tough, because everyone will put their best foot forward.
You can pretend to be somebody for as long as you want until you decide that you no longer need to do that anymore.
You know what? I have so many friends of mine that are either in horrible marriages or got divorced because they put up a front of who they really were for years.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day they just got tired of being someone they weren't, and this was oh, screw this. And then the wife is like, who the heck are you? Why are you acting this way? And then next you know, the marriage falls apart or the relationship falls apart. That's why, joking about the dumpster diver guy, but I have more respect for him. At least he's coming out and saying, hey, this is my thing. I would rather someone come out and be honest about who they are instead of someone being who they're not, because then you end up with some creep that you've given a key to your place. You decide to leave and they broke into your place. They're living in your house. They're doing all this stuff. And I mean, it's crazy. Give me your thoughts on this one. The deep breath.
I would have called the police.
Of course.
I would have definitely called the police. Even if he had a key, it's still trespassing because you didn't say that it was okay for him to be over there. You didn't know he was over there. And you meant to get the key back and you just never got it back. I would have definitely called the cops.
That's why those Ring doorbells are so important, so you can see who's coming in and out.
My home is my sanctuary. And, you know, once something bad happens in your home, it no longer has that sanctuary feel to it because you'll never fully 100% feel safe again. And so I would have called the cops, I would have pressed charges, and I would have gotten a restraining order. And I probably would have moved.
And see, that's the thing that's unfair. This creep has really imposed on this woman's life. You have a situation, I don't know how the whole Sugar Mama's website kind of mixed in on there. How did that tie in?
So they broke up because he was basically living with her at that point, and she found an email on his laptop.
Okay.
And that's how they broke up, because she found that.
I'm gonna defend him on the Sugar Mama site. Sounded like he didn't really have a place to stay, and he was trying to find him a place to crash, and so he was looking for him a sugar mama.
No. Sugar mama and sugar baby are two different things. Sugar mama pays you money. Sugar baby, you pay them money.
And which one was he on?
Sugar baby. So he was trying to be a sugar daddy.
Oh no, I don't want that. I want somebody to feed me grapes and take care of me. I'm not taking care of. Oh no,
sugar mama and sugar baby are two different things.
Oh no, I ain't trying to be nobody's sugar daddy. Y'all can kick rocks. I'm not nobody's sugar daddy. Now if y'all want to feed me grapes and take me in, scratch me behind the ear, I'm good. Mm-hmm. But no, that's why you're a married man.
Yeah. I was like, slow down, Tate.
Slow your roll there, Tate. But yeah. No, you know what? You can tell there was something not right with that guy. This is one of those things that I've always told people when it comes to dating. You should have one rule in dating. When you first start dating someone, when in doubt, throw their ass out. And I'm serious, because if you see anything that's not quite right, let them go. Because that little thing is going to get bigger and bigger. Not to mention, if it's that little thing that bugs you, a lot of times they're hiding a lot more behind them. So I've always taken that approach. When in doubt, throw them out when you're dating until you find that right one.
Also, my thing is the audacity of him not even cleaning up his mess after squatting in her place. Like, just leave trash everywhere and unclean dishes. Like,
why? Okay, wait. You're breaking into someone's house illegally in the first place. It's not like if he brings out the Swiffer and starts cleaning up afterwards, you're going to be like, oh, it was okay. He knew you're going to be mad at him anyway. So he's like, why do I bother?
But she didn't know at first. She didn't know. So you should have cleaned up the place and she may have never found out.
Okay, something else. I'm going to tell you this right now. This happens to me. This is going to sound silly. This is a very expensive situation for me because there's nothing in the refrigerator. I'm throwing all the stuff in the refrigerator out. I'm throwing anything and everything in that house. I don't know what he did to it, what he was doing in there. I want all that stuff gone.
That's why I say just move.
Right. But move mean I'm taking my stuff and bringing it to a new location. No, I am getting, I don't want any of the food. I don't want a lot of that stuff because I don't know what he did, who he had in his house, any of that stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Am I being extreme on that one? Because
no,
I'm
I
like,
don't think you are.
I get, like the blankets and all that stuff. You can take that to the dry cleaners and have them clean it up, some of the clothes and stuff. But no, I'm not trusting. None of the toiletries, none of the pills. I'm not trusting anything in that house that you're consuming. All that stuff goes in the dumpster. I want new stuff in there. A lot of people would disagree with me on that one.
No, I agree.
If you got a psychopath enough that he's gonna be like, you know what, I'm gonna move into her house. I know she's gone, so I'm gonna take advantage of this. That's a person that doesn't have a lot of respect for who you are. And it'd be and the same thing, it could have been like, listen, hey, I'm kind of down on my luck. I know you're gonna be gone a little bit. Can I crash on your couch for a couple of days while you're gone? Is that okay? Something like that.
Yeah. Don't just show up and
be a squatter. Eating my top ramen and my leftover Chinese. Don't be coming to my house. You know what I mean? Ordering DoorDash at the place saying hello to the neighbors.
Yeah.
No. All right.
All right, guys. Well, with that, we're going to close out the show. Thank you for tuning in to the Andrew Tate Show presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show and leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. Thank you once again. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you Monday.
See you later.
Peace.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.